Hey, this is Steven from LegitTechTutorials, and welcome back to Intro to Computers. Today we're going to be going over motherboards. So I guess I didn't really go too in depth of what I wanted to do last video. Last video we did the CPU, which is a central processing unit, which is the main brain of the computer. You do not want to, that's the most important part of the computer. And today we're going to go over the motherboard, which is where everything interconnects inside the motherboard. Everything connects to the motherboard. It controls everything and brings everything to the processor, the video card, and the RAM, or in the hard drive and stuff like that, which we'll go over later. In order to do everything, basically everything happens here, but it all helps. The motherboard just helps it connect to the processor, basically, the CPU. Alright, so also in this series, as you can see, I'm not talking about like which ones to buy, this and that. These are just general. Like right now I have a motherboard loaded that I just loaded because of the color scheme. It's easier to see when I'm explaining it, so you guys could understand. So we're gonna go over the descriptions again and what all this mess means, and how to research possible stuff that you would want to pick up and to understand how things work together, etc. Okay, so what I have loaded right now is an Intel motherboard. You can see here with the Intel. So let's go ahead and get started. So the manufacturer is ASRock, and this is just the name of the motherboard. This is the type of motherboard. Then we get into so I'm already in specifications here. This is the chipset. So basically there's different types of chipsets that basically control the board. So those are what control the board. They allow certain things to work. Like some boards have certain chipsets that allow for more RAM than others, faster RAM than others. It all depends. Like, I can't really tell you, because it's going to change over time. They're always coming out with new chipsets. For any one socket that you use for your processor, there's going to be a couple different chipsets to choose from, all of which would give you different results. And the chipsets usually shared all across the board. As you see, that big red heatsink there, where my mouse is over, is also housed in there. And yeah, so let's continue on. As you can see, the socket type is LGA 1150, and let me show you guys those in the title. So here's the Z97 chipset and the LGA 1150. So this will fit that i7's 4790 that we went over yesterday, 4790K. That will fit on this, and then here you see the chipset again, and you see the Intel chipset. So next one we have here is it tells you the CPU type. Of course, it's anything that fits in 1150, which, as you can see, it could have any of these in there. So it could actually basically fit almost any Intel chip except for Xenon, which is a workstation. Then we have memory. So this is the RAM slots. So it has 4 RAM slots, which you'll see. Let me go to the top, up and down. You'll see where the mouse is, right here on the left, and then look at it closely. It's let me just open it up. So it's these guys right here. So it's these guys are the RAM slots, and you see we have 1, 2, 3, 4 RAM slots. And then the 240 is the number of pins that the RAM chip uses, which is pretty standard. Then we have the type of RAM. So here you see DDR3, and this is the clock speed. Just like the CPU, RAMs have clock speeds as well, which we'll go over later. And you see here that you have a max of 320 all the way down to 1066 and everywhere in between. So the OC means that you have to overclock your RAM to get to that speed. So these are the standard speeds, as nowadays 1600 right here is the most standard. for gaming and for basic workstation stuff, because you need that RAM speed to speed up all your multitasking. And then here's very important, the maximum memory support. So you could have 32 gigs of RAM installed in those 4 slots and be able to use them. And that also sometimes has to do with the chipset. Could vary how many gigs of RAM you could use. Then you see expansion slots. So expansion slots are the bigger slots that you'll see down here, which I'll explain them one at a time. So you see them down here, and actually this picture explains it pretty well. So here we have a PCI 3.0 16 slot. So you don't really need to know what a PCI Express is. It's basically, I don't even know, I can't even remember what the acronym stands for. Basically, it's where you attach a video card, and the higher the number there, so they had 2.0, now they have 3.0. The higher the number, the more bandwidth that they have to, you can do more processing work with your video card the higher up the number has. And of course, that also has to deal with the chipset as well. As some of the AMD boards we're going to look at don't always have the 2.0, as they're slightly older. And you see the very next one has a 2.0. There's a 2.0 right under it. And by the way, the 16, the by 16, 3.0 by 16 slot is the size of the slot. The size is a 16 slot. So make sure that if you have a 16 slot graphics card or some other accessory card, like for example, I have a capture card that would fit in this one. Make sure that you have, or this one up here, make sure that you have the right number of slots for that big of a card. Then we have a 2.0, and it says it's got a by 4 mode, which means that I guess you could just put 4 in there. You could just do a 4 size, like a shorter card in there, and I guess it would work. That's what they mean by 4. But it's the same thing, but it's a 2.0, so it's got less bandwidth there. Then we have the PCI slots. So these are just standard PCI, not even express slots. So these are for slower expansion cards. You have 2 of those. And then we have the PCI Express 1 slot, so the very small slot. So it's something you use like capture card, sound card, those types of things. Let's see what else we have. Alright, so let's continue on. It's saying dual channel. So basically dual channel is, if you could see here, the RAM up there at the top right, we have 2 slots each. So there's 4 slots, 2 and 2. That's what dual channel means, that there's 2 paired with each other and 2 paired with each other. Because if you notice, there's 2 red coded ones and there's 2 black coded ones. So that's what dual channel means. And here you see all of those specifications laid out, and you do not see those specifications in here. So you do have to click on it, or usually you could tell from the picture. You'll eventually be able to tell from the picture that these are 2.0 slots, as you see those have the little clips. See the little white clips on them for the expansion slots down there, the PCI Express. Those little clips usually signify their PCI Express 3.0. But as you see, the top one, the bottom one look exactly the same, but the bottom one is a 2.0. So you basically have to click on it to figure it out. But I think that's also pretty standard, and if you look up the chipset, it'll tell you that it probably has this standard. So usually if you just Google the chipset, it'll tell you exactly what is on the board most of the time. Okay, so we have 2 of the PCI Express 1s. That's the black one. Those are the 2 black ones there you see. PCI Express 1 slot. PCI slots, 2 of them. Those are at the bottom. Then we have the storage drives. So this is used for hard drives, and that's hard drives and DVD drives, etc. like that, optical drives or storage drives. And this is the newest version, the SATA 3. So sometimes you'll see it SATA, sometimes you'll see it say SATA 3, but that's the 6 gigabytes per second is SATA 3. That's the most up to date. It is the fastest, and you see we have 6 of those connections. The previous one, by the way, is 3 gigabytes per 3 gigabits per second. And then one SATA Express. So SATA Express is usually to attach something on the outside of the computer. And I don't know what the hell this is. I never seen that before. Where is that? Okay, so you see it here. So here's the SATA Express. You get a couple SATA Expresses. So if you have a card that needs if you have some storage drive that needs SATA Express, there you go, right here. And here is your standard SATA connectors for most hard drives and DVD drives. Now, where is that one thing he was talking about? That must be on the back or something. Yes, don't worry about this. I don't even know what that is. Okay, so this is SATA in RAID, which has to do with a hard drive. Most novices and amateurs don't usually use RAID too often, as it's pretty expensive. So basically what RAID is there's ways to make your data safe and also to make your data technically unsafe but speed up your drives. So it's a way to increase your drive speed or to keep your data duplicated and safe if you have more than one drive. If you have more than one drive, you can't do it. Then right here it says that it supports onboard video, and those SATA is the RAID. The RAID types are 0, 1, 5, and 10. You could Google up what the RAID stuff is, or look it up on YouTube. You'll find plenty of stuff explaining that. Onboard video means that it could be supported by your CPU. Having onboard graphics is supported. Then you have the audio chipset. So this is basically what it means when you plug in your audio jack in the back. This is what audio card it has on it. The onboard audio chipset that it has built in. And I'm going to say that it's this guy right here. Oh no, it's the LAN card. So there's a killer LAN. Okay, that makes sense. We'll go over that in a second. But yeah, right here is where all those guys connect. I will show you the back of those. I'll show you the back here in a second and all the connectors. Right after I get to this part here. So it says it's got 7:1, 7.1 surround sound that you could plug into that. I'll go over that in a second. Here we have so that's the chipset, like I said, the audio chipset that handles onboard audio. That is what most people use nowadays. They don't really use sound cards too much anymore. This is the LAN chipset, so this is what you use for your internet, for your Ethernet cable, for your internet, right? That plugs into the back of your computer. So it's using a high quality gaming like LAN internet chipset for that, and it's very high speed. It has the capability of 10, 100, or 1000 megabits per second, so it's basically going to handle any speed you throw at it. Okay, now we have the rear ports here. So this is a PS2 keyboard and mouse port, which is pretty legacy, ancient. And then we have DVI-D, which is an output if you're going to use onboard. So this is all for onboard stuff. It has nothing to do with any expansion cards like video cards you put on there. Then you have to use a different port. So we have the smaller DVI, I guess, the D sub. DVI-D, which is a full-size DVI port. 1 HDMI port. 4 USB 3.0s. So there's USB 3.0s, USB 2.0. USB 2.0 is slower than USB 3.0, just like PCI Express 3 and PCI Express 2, 3.0 and 2.0. It has just larger bandwidth, and that's the difference. So 2.0 is slower than 3.0. Then we have one fatality mouse port. I guess, I don't know. It has something to do with that this is a fatality motherboard, and it's a fatality mouse port. I don't know. Okay, one optical. So this is optical audio out, which use fiber. Okay. So let me go ahead and show you. So here's the optical out. Let me zoom in here. Wait, too close. Alright, so that should be plenty good enough. Okay, so here's the VGA. So this is for VGA out. And here's the DVI-D. And here's two USB 2.0 ports. Here's the rest of them. So there's 4. And then you have 4 USB 3.0s. There's where your LAN, that's where your internet cable comes in, the RJ45 port, where your Cat 5 cable goes into. And here are all your audios. So here's the visual. So here's the visual out. So you use fiber cable if you're going to use that type of audio. And here's your other jacks, your other analog. So it's like this is the standard speaker one, and this is your mic jack. There's your PS2 port, just in case you're using some older mouse that you don't want to get rid of for some reason. Then there's that port. It's shared, it looks like, between the keyboard and the mouse. And here you have the single HDMI port if you're using onboard video. So of course this guy, and these guys here are only if you're using onboard video. Otherwise you would attach it into the graphics card, which you would see in one of my how to build a computer tutorial series or whatever. Okay, so we have a Comport Header, all these, so it's like, the other most important thing would probably be the how many fan connectors it has, so that they connect right on the motherboard, and you could change their speed using PWM, pulse width modulation, on the while your computer is running at the same time. So we got Thunderbolt, we got, usually you want at least a front panel audio connector, just in case your case has got an audio connector on the front. The rest of this is pretty standard. These are probably the only two that are going to vary. This and this one, so because this has got a Thunderbolt connector. And then finally we have the form factor, ATX. ATX is very important when you want to pick up a case, as it specifies what case size you need in order to fit the motherboard in there, as well as it shows the dimensions, and it shows the power pin that needs to match up with your power supply. And most power supplies have 24 pin. 24 pin is the standard. So yeah, like I said, dimensions, and also ATX usually also has something to do with how many PCI Express ports it has on there, because that really extends the bottom of the motherboard, or how many RAM slots it has determines like how wide it is. Also, I think I forgot to show you right there in the center, as you see, that's where the processor goes. There's the socket right there. I didn't really go into that, but that's where the socket connects. And yeah, so the SATA, let me make sure I got everything. Oh, here's the 24-pin power connector where that goes, and here's that 8-pin power connector. So you're not going to have to really worry about it going over this. You'll have to worry about it when you start to build a computer, and that will be done in another series. Alright, so this is just the other stuff that has to do with, you know, the advertising, I guess you could say, about the board. So this is all board specific features, so you might want to check that out. And here it explains what's inside the case, what's inside the package, 4 SATA cables, and the screw for that weird socket, and the IO shield that fits over the back IO here, the back IO you see. Alright, so let's go ahead and load up a AMD motherboard. So this is the AMD motherboard. This is the AM3 Plus. This fits that FX in there. And so yeah, so let's get started. It's going to be very quick, as they are very similar, as you'll see in a second. Let me load up specifications. Alright, you see here that it only has, that this is a slightly smaller board. It only has 2 RAM slots. As you can see there, 2 RAM slots. Here, okay, so let's start from the top. So the socket is an AM3 Plus, which fits these types of processors: the FX, Phenom, Athlon 2. I never really heard of that one. Anyways, this is a front side bus. Don't really have to worry about that. That's super technical, so don't worry about that. The chipset, here you see the chipset. So let me go up top and show you where it says that chipset. So there you see 760G, and here you see 760G plus. So here you see 760G plus, and there you see 760G plus SB710. So this whole thing is the chipset. And like I said, the chipset specifies a lot of the stuff that is used on there, and also shows you right here in the little quick description. So we have a maximum of 8 gigs. So in this case, 4 gigs. Oh, I jumped. Okay, so we have two 240 slots. And then here it shows the speeds again. So 1066, 1330, and now you see, in order to get 1600 standard, you need to overclock it. Memory support is 8 gigs, dual channel. So like you said, usually it's a pair of 2. So this one has a pair of 2. If you have a 6 slot, usually it's tri-channel. So you have 2 sets of 3, right? Usually. So usually when you buy a pack of RAM, you want to look for something that says dual channel, a dual channel kit. So you'll look for that. Alright, and as you see here, AM3 is kind of restrictive as far as the PCI Express usually. As you see, we only go up to a 2.0, and then we only have a 1X and a standard one. So you see here that we have 2 1X slots, and we have a PCI Express 2.0 by 16 slot, and we have 1 PCI slot down there that's turquoise. And like I said, in between, straddling that PCI Express 2.0, we have the 2 1X slots here. So here's the 1X, and here's the 1X slot. And okay, so let's move on here. Okay. Alright, so next we have the SATA 3. So as you see, the other one was SATA 6. This is SATA 3, so this is SATA 2. The other one was SATA 3, 6 gigabytes per second. This is SATA 2, 3 gigabytes per second. So it's 3 gigabits slower than the other one. So it also has to do with the chipset. And also you see the SATA RAID again. And it's got 6 of those. So those are going to be usually the same mounted spot. You see there at the bottom right hand corner here, right here, the SATA connectors. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And they're all 3 gigabit per second, no 6 gigabit per second ones. Then we have the RAID, so it's capable of 0, 1, and 10 RAID on the controller, onboard controller. Then we have the onboard is ATI Radeon 3000, so I guess it's got built in. So because FX, the FX processor, like I said last tutorial, is it doesn't have any onboard graphics. So this one has built-in onboard graphics for you. I'm guessing it would be one of these chips, probably under that central heatsink there. Alright, so yeah, it has onboard graphics, so you could run onboard graphics with this motherboard and having an FX series and it being separate. Alright, so then it says the audio chipset, the 8-channel instead of the other one 7.1. Here it shows the Ethernet chipset. The other one was what, Killer Killer LAN or whatever. This one's a standard Realtek, which is usually the most popular. 10, 100, 1000 megabits per second. And then you have the ports, so very similar in the ports. And here we have the same thing with this chipset again. We don't have any USB 3.0s. We only have USB 2.0s. And let's go ahead and take a look at some of those things here in the back. Okay, so here we have, you see it's also a very limited, you know, well, I mean, this is for most people, but it's very limited here with the number of plugs, because the other one had visual out and stuff like that, and all the other 2 plugs that go here. So here's your parallel port. You don't really use that too much. Usually used for printers, this one as well, I think. And here's the standard VGA out, and you see it doesn't even have HDMI support. PS2 mouse port, and separate keyboard and mouse, and then we have here's the RJ. Here's the Ethernet port for your internet, and then we have 4 USB 2.0 ports. And here you actually see that's the North Bridge and South Bridge, so that's the video's not underneath there. The video's somewhere else. Alright, so that basically sums it up. I mean, there's some other... So you go through this and you see that you should have some variations. See, here's a 880G plus, entirely different chipset. The entirely different chipset. You see here 880G. Let's see if it has much of anything different. It has 8 gigs of so 8 gigs max, so still same thing. These are all yeah, it looks very, I mean, it's basically the same thing. There's not really anything different with this. It actually doesn't have 8 channel. So you just have to look up, here's another difference one. This is a 785 chipset. It's a lot more colorful, looking like Legos. Definitely only supports DDR2. So yeah, it all depends, as you saw there, just the change in the chipset will vary different things. So yeah, so I would Google up the chipsets available for your specific what is it called? Socket. So for your specific socket, AM3 plus, AM3, FM2, or for NVIDIA here, 1150, 1155, 2011, etc., etc. So let's go ahead and look through quickly another one. Here's H81 chipset. So here, as you see, we have, it says that there's no overclocking options. And we only have 2 pins here on this one. So the H is definitely a smaller form factor chipset. Also, it only has USB 2.0, no USB 3.0, and it only still has 6 gigabit. It doesn't have any. It just has a standard PCI Express slot. So this is a very primitive chipset for that. So that's if you don't want to use any video, you'd go with that chipset. As far as gaming video, and this is a pretty high dollar one. Let's go ahead and click on the new version. This is an MSI. You see, it goes all the way up to 3000 overclock, 2000 overclock, 2800, 2600, blah blah blah. So basically anything you want for six SATA cables, one mSATA cable, 4 USB 3.0s, and we have two PCI Express 3.0 and one PCI Express 2.0. So very, very high dollar thing. Alright, so that's basically it for this video. So this is about the motherboard, the main brain, and now you understand what all of these numbers mean, and you'll later understand what goes into every one of these connections. And you see there in the center is the processor socket and the RAM sockets and all of these other video expansion card sockets and the I/O ports. And then SATA, and that's basically it. So now you understand the basic layout of a motherboard and how to research something that you are looking for, or research your particular one. So now you understand what all this means when you look it up on Newegg, all this stuff in the title, what it actually means, and how to spot what you need quickly, and also how to go through the specifications here and be able to tell which one's better and which one's not better. Yeah, so this has been Steven from LegitTechTutorials. I thank you for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe, and I guess I'm going to write a book for the series eventually. I'll get around to it. Write a book. So if you don't like this video, please, if you don't like a visual and you want more words and pictures and still pictures, then I would be on the lookout for that, because they don't really write books for this type of thing. If you like this video, please subscribe for more videos like it in this series and other series as well. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. Peace.